Welcome to the Informed Advocate Podcast, and I'm your host, Sharon, a self-care advocate, mental health activist, and wellness consultant. And so, for this episode of the Informed Advocate Podcast, we're going to continue the conversation of care for the caregivers. And in the previous conversation, we talked about personal caregivers. So in this episode, we're going to talk about professional caregivers. And again, here we refer to individuals as self-caregivers because self-care is the gateway of supporting and caring and guiding others. And so again, when it comes to professional caregivers, those are individuals who are in the medical field, in the mental health field. It can be first responders like law enforcement, firefighters, those who transport individuals to the hospital as well. And again, it can be teachers because again, it's about other people supporting and taking care of others in a certain way. And the other thing is that I just thought about that I hadn't listed before, even those who serve in the military, because, they are protecting, our lives. And so, again, one thing that I want to make sure that I emphasize so much here on the Informed Advocate Podcast is stress and trauma. And the main thing is that even though you could say they're different, however, they really impact the body in very similar ways. And the body may not really know the difference between which one it is. And in the previous episode, we talked about how much stress may not necessarily lead to trauma, but trauma is a form of stress. And again, when it comes to the body, it may not really know the difference. And just know that it activates the nervous system, especially the sympathetic nervous system, the fight, flight, freeze. That's in that sense of whether or not should we, sometimes we can just be in shock and numb, or do we need to hide? That's when that freeze comes into play. Or should we run, or should we need to stand up for ourselves? And when it comes to fight, it doesn't always necessarily mean a physical altercation, in which sometimes it may be that, but it's more standing in your truth, standing your ground in that respect. And so, in moving on, again, when it comes to professional caregivers, and as I said before, professional caregivers are almost always personal caregivers too. So it's a duality when it comes to that. And what I've observed is that, again, especially when it comes to professional caregivers, always giving, but then not always taking care of themselves. And then the other thing too, that I am a witness of, also experience it myself, is systemically the way that the system is in the medical field, in the mental health, in the helping world, it's really not completely set up for us to take care of ourselves for those individuals and those of us who are professional self-caregivers. And so that means that we really need to take an effort, be intentional about our self-care, and to have the support of family and friends and community as well. And so that is so, so helpful when it comes to that. And so in saying that, when it comes to supervisors, managers, directors, CEOs, whatever the titles may be, because in each place it may be something different, especially when it comes to the military and law enforcement, and even firefighters. There are certain titles, but meaning somewhere in the management area. one thing that I will definitely invite you all to do is to look at your infrastructure of when someone experiences, especially a crisis. We always know the crisis, but not always what I kind of call the subtleness of when it comes to stress. But even when it comes to crisis, it's still not set up for us to take care of ourselves. Because even in the mental health field, if it depends on the incident, of course, if someone gets hurt, then that's a different story. But for the most part, let's say, for instance, if someone is doing an assessment, whether it's in the emergency room or in the office, or even when it comes to a therapist session in the office and it escalates to a point where the person may need a evaluation, and let's say it's to the point where it initiates the involuntary commitment. And so, in saying that, even in the emergency room may be a tad bit different as compared to the office when someone has a therapy appointment, because there are appointments after appointments. And so, let's just say within an appointment, someone can be experiencing something where they need further evaluation. That particular mental health professional, therapist, or clinician, depends on what the title is, will do what needs to be done in order for that to happen. And then usually what happens is that they usually go on to the next patient. And so it's really important to put in place something to offset that, because that is very stressful. It's almost as if, and again, I've experienced it. It was just like, it's part of the job, is what it does. But now that I have a different understanding of what stress does to the body, we really need to be able to, even if it's just 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes would be even better, to be able to go to a quiet room, go for a walk or some place, because that really does activate the central nervous system, and we need to be able to relinquish that. It's not always, and each person is different. It just really depends. Some people may need to verbally process that, and usually when that needs to occur, that usually can happen for the next patient. And then it's almost like there are other things that can happen, but the focus always be, I need to get to this next patient. And the way that I see things unfolding is that even for that patient who's waiting for the appointment, you could say part of them learning, of how to navigate things themselves. And even though they're dealing with their own issues, their own problems, it's almost like, in order for someone to learn how to be patient, things in the universe will happen where it will allow them to practice in being patient. And so that is for another conversation, but I'm just putting that piece in there. Again, when it comes to the professional caregiver, self-caregiver, is to allow that space, that time, so that it can be in between, appointments. When it comes to the emergency room, like I said, that can, in the emergency room, even though a lot of times we're really busy and the thing is to get to the next patient, but depends on the role of the person, they may have the opportunity, as I said, to be able to have a 2-minute breather and go for a 5-minute walk. That is really important, because what I have come to realize of how much I love what I do, especially in other roles that I've been in, that it is very stressful, a highly stressful job. And then especially for those in the medical field, especially those who work in the emergency room, one patient after another, especially, someone, let's say, who does surgery or something, like I say, really look at your infrastructure to see how you can give the person who's experiencing a stressful time, even though they may not even think they need that space, is to be able to give them that space. Because again, no matter where someone works or who we are, we're human at the end of the day. And we must take care of our vessel from head to toe, inside and out. So it's really important, especially for law enforcement, firefighters, military personnel, individuals. It's just really important to be able to put something in place to allow, like I said, the release of something, to be able to not only to debrief, because those things are definitely in place, but definitely to decompress. And, a lot of times for people in certain positions, it's almost like society has this expectation. It's like nothing bothers us and we just have to keep on and keep on. And again, that may, in certain circumstances, that may be the case, but at some point, even if, let's say, it's after the shift or after something, to be able to use the 5 steps, 5 minutes, that's to say 5 days. And, again, the more you use those, the 5 stress busters, then the more you're training your body of how to turn off the fight, flight, freeze. So that's basically what it is. It's meaning like in between clients, in between seeing someone, in between the next call, whatever your job may be, in between that, to be able, it's almost like you're entering into each interaction brand new. And so the other part of that is that you're doing this for yourself. And again, very similar to the suggestions that was made in the previous podcast regarding self-caregivers, is to follow some of those things too. And another thing is, before I move on, we're talking about having those moments to decompress, and also look at your infrastructure to see if there's, to be able to put a quiet room or place, if it's in an office or especially in a room where it's not used. I remember when I worked in the emergency room, they did have, it was almost like, I don't know what it was called, but it was a room in which they had recliner chairs that people could go in and sleep, because, it was overnight. And so therefore people can go in, and I'm saying sleep because that's what I did when I went in there went on my lunch break. And so just meaning to add in, if there was any kind of way to add it, meditation, music. It did have TV, so it's almost like instead of having the TV station of something on, go ahead and have the beautiful pictures or colors and things with meditation. And that would really be an awesome way of someone to be able to decompress and to be able to let that go, whether they're doing their lunch break, or especially when incidents, episodes, and those things occur. But again, when we practice it on a regular basis, it's like our body will know and our mind will know when we're not doing it. And so again, and just a review of a couple of things from, like I said, when it comes to the personal caregiver, it really rolls over. But the main thing is when it comes to professional staff caregivers, is really knowing that it's like that additional stress of the daily job that can happen and can have even more of an impact, plus the family and even friends, things of what someone may be dealing with. And so, where family and friends can help professional staff caregivers, in a sense, again, is to ask how can the person be supported. Majority of the time, especially professional staff caregivers, usually say no. And so, what I'm inviting you to do is when someone asks you this, those individuals who work in the medical field, those who are mental health professionals, those who are first responders, teachers, and like I say, everyone else in that category, pause for a moment and really check in with yourself. And that's when you can kind of do that little scan and kind of like see where I am and let me see, do I need support, especially if you've experienced something. Let's say, like for teachers, a lot of times they do experience certain things at school where it's fights or someone having an outburst and things like that. And remember, when it comes to stress and trauma, part of it is talking. We really need to meet people where they are, because for some people, talking may not be therapeutic. And so when you're dealing with trauma, and I'm talking about it more so what trauma does to the body, go back and listen to a previous episode of how we talked about stress and trauma from that perspective. And so the other thing that family, friends, and the community can do with to help support professional staff caregivers, again, is to sit and comfort someone. Because sometimes there may not be anything they want to talk about. And the other thing is, depends on what their job, because of confidentiality, they're not able to specifically talk about certain things anyway. And so the individuals, they do have, other outlets. And I would definitely say use EAP, reach out to a therapist if that is needed. But again, remember with Informed Advocate Podcast, one of the things that we really want you to look at is look at every way that you can support yourself, that you can help with alleviate stress, preventing burnout and resolving other health concerns. And so, again, just ask the person if they need any assistance, any help, run any errands, to do any favors, bring them some lunch or something like that, especially if you know that their day wasn't a good day. Check in just to say hello, in that sense, just let that person know that you are there. And if you're aware, because a lot of times, to be honest, I know with me, especially when I have worked in the emergency room, if certain things occur, I just don't talk about it or whatsoever. And but now I know, and again, for me, because each person is different, it's not that I needed to talk about it anyway, because what I've learned is that, again, a lot of those experiences are held in the body. So I needed to do, what we refer as embodiment work. And so, again, with this episode was about, supporting professional staff caregivers. The way that you support them is very similar, but the main thing, again, is to pretty much recognize the overwhelming stress that they're under just on their everyday job, and not just when incidents and episodes and what's considered a crisis, not just when that occurred, just on a daily basis, this is just stressful. And so those are, different ways to help support. And then if you are a professional caregiver yourself, definitely do those things on a daily basis to support yourself. Again, sometimes taking a bubble bath or getting a massage, sometimes people, that can be overrated and people like, oh, well, it's not this and that. From what I'm learning, more and more about the body, especially, when we're talking about it from a trauma standpoint of what it does to the body, whether it's stress or whether it's trauma, is those things really do help turn off the fight, flight, freeze. Because just by doing just by living in one sense, and then plus certain jobs that we have keep us in that fight, flight, freeze. And of course, I'm saying we because I do, work in the mental health arena. But anyway, thank you for joining me for this episode.